She was 31 years old, a mother, a wife, a neighbor on a quiet street in Oceanside, New York. And one day in 1974, someone came to her door. Barbara Waldman was found in her own home, bound, gagged, shot. There were no witnesses. There was almost no evidence. There was nothing. For 52 years, her killer walked free. He even died free. But Barbara had a daughter, and her daughter never stopped looking. This is the story of Barbara Waldman. And this is the story of how the truth was found half a century too late. It was 1974, Oceanside, New York, a suburb, a community, a place where people knew each other's names. Barbara Waldman was 31 years old. She had a family. She had a life. She had a daughter named Mara, who would grow up to become the most important investigator this case ever had, though nobody knew that yet. On the day Barbara was murdered, she was in her own home. Whoever killed her knew what they were doing. They bound her, they gagged her with a pillowcase, and they shot her in the head. Then they left. No forced entry, no clear motive, no witnesses on the street. When police arrived, they found one fingerprint, and a description from someone in the area, a man seen near the house wearing a distinctive coat, a fur-trimmed snorkel coat. That coat would become the most important physical detail in the entire case. At the time, it led nowhere. Police ran the fingerprint. No match. They distributed the composite sketch. The man in the snorkel coat. No identification. They canvassed the neighborhood. They interviewed the community. They followed every lead they had. And one by one, every lead dissolved. The case was never officially closed, but in practice, it went silent. Months passed, then years, then decades. Barbara's family buried her, grieved her, tried to move forward. But for her daughter Mara, there was no moving forward. There was only the question that never went away. Who? Not why, not how. She already knew how. Just who. And while the police file sat in a cabinet, untouched, unresolved, Mara began to build her own. Mara Waldman had grown up knowing only one thing for certain about her mother's death: the coat. The fur-trimmed snorkel coat the witness had described. That specific, strange, distinctive coat. For years, she collected information, filed requests, spoke to anyone who had known her mother. She built an evidence wall in her home that most police departments would respect. She wasn't trained in investigation. She was trained in grief. And grief is a very effective motivator. Then, while conducting her own research, Mara came across a photograph. It was a photograph of a man she didn't know. A man in a fur-trimmed snorkel coat. The exact style, the exact cut, the exact distinctive hood described by the witness in 1974. 50 years later, the same coat. She had a name to go with the photograph, Thomas Garazio. She brought what she had to investigators, and what happened next changed everything. In 2024, investigators made a decision that 50 years ago would have been science fiction. They would use forensic-grade genome sequencing from evidence that was 50 years old. From a single fingerprint and biological material preserved in a case file that had sat in a cabinet since 1974. The technology didn't exist in 1974. It barely existed 10 years ago. But in 2024, it existed, and it worked. Scientists built a DNA profile from the degraded material, a near-complete genetic picture assembled from almost nothing. They ran it through genealogical databases, and they found a partial genetic match, a distant relative. From that relative, investigators were able to trace a family tree to build a list of possible candidates. And one name was at the top: Thomas Garazio. The same name Mara had brought them, the same man in the photograph, the same coat. 2 investigations, 2 methods, 5 decades apart. 1 answer. In March 2026, investigators formally named Thomas Garazio as the person responsible for the murder of Barbara Waldman. 52 years. 52 years. And then, a second revelation. Thomas Garazio had died in 2004, 22 years before his name was ever spoken in connection with this crime. He had lived his entire life without facing what he had done. He had died without facing what he had done. There would be no trial, no conviction, no photograph of him in handcuffs. Just a name. Just a confirmed answer to a question that had waited half a century. For Mara Waldman, was that enough? Only she can answer that. But for the first time in 52 years, she knew. She knew. And sometimes, knowing is the only justice that's left to give. There are an estimated 250,000 unsolved murders in the United States alone. Each one is a family. Each one is a Mara. The Barbara Waldman case didn't just solve one murder. It proved something. It proved that genome sequencing can reach back 50 years and still find a name. It proved that a daughter with a determination and a photograph can break open a case that police had long since left behind. It proved that cold cases are never truly cold. They are just waiting. Waiting for the right technology. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for someone who refuses to stop asking the question. Barbara Waldman was 31 years old. She deserved to grow old. She deserved to watch Mara grow up. She deserved justice in 1974. She finally got something close to it in 2026. And that is because of her daughter. As of today, Thomas Garazio has been named. The case of Barbara Waldman has been formally resolved. But the question this case leaves behind is how many others are still waiting? How many filing cabinets still hold files like Barbara's? How many families are still living without an answer? And how many of those answers are already waiting in 50-year-old evidence, dormant, retrievable, solvable, if only someone decided to look? Barbara Waldman, 1943 to 1974. Remembered. If you know another case like this one, a cold case, a family searching, a detail that never made sense, tell me in the comments. I read every single one.